Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about Ripple and XRP as well as the entire market. So let's just dive in and let's start with this. So first off, in my opinion, I don't believe that the media will never tell you the truth. First off, one, I believe that the media is really kind of just, delivering the false narrative to everyone out there to kind of say, hey, things are all good, things have been good, so there's nothing to worry about. I said over on Twitter, I said the media won't tell you we are already in a recession and have been since the beginning of quarter 2. What do I mean by this? Well, a lot of people were confused. A lot of people were saying, like, what does this mean? What do you mean, right? Well, when we actually look at things and when you actually look at the definition of a recession, it is 2 negative GDP quarters in a row. We already had that. We already had 2 declining GDP quarters in a row. And a lot of people were saying, well, no, the GDP increased, right, in the third quarter. The problem with the increase on the third quarter is that it is technically not an increase when you look at the 10-year average. So when we look at this, and when we look at the percentages on the board here as well, that small gain is nothing. We actually see over here from Eric over on Twitter, EPB Research, real GDP was released today. Growth rebounded in quarter 3, presenting a surface level impression that the economy is hot in quotation marks. Under the hood, this narrative falls apart. And we do see down here, consumption and investment, 89% of total GDP, slowed sharply to a trending growth rate of just 0.5%. This means total GDP was boosted from the small non-cyclical components of GDP like inventory, trade, and government spending. Residential investment and durable goods consumption, the most cyclical and high-powered sectors of the economy, contracted at a 3.6% annualized rate. The cyclical engine of growth has been negative for 4 consecutive quarters. This is why we have been saying when you look at things happening around this space, not even just this space, I shouldn't even say the entire world economically has been in chaos. But our media will never tell you the truth. I said when we had the 2 negative GDP quarters in a row, there's an individual that had a TikTok video that was talking about this, and they even said the media will not tell you until it's too late. Quarter 1 of 2023, we might see them actually say we are in a recession. In fact, somebody actually said over here, the bears are going to be in for a real surprise when they realize the markets were already in turmoil. A lot of people have been saying a few things as well. I mean, change the definition of recession when 2 negative GDPs equal to a recession. Yeah, 100%. They changed it. They changed it. We do see because recession is bad and the government doesn't want to be the one to blame for it. So they act like it doesn't exist and gave us some financial injections. Catastrophe in the making, 100%. We've been focused on this. They have been lying to us. The media will not tell you the truth. We do see over here as well from Zero Hedge, they're simply not motivated. Home buyers are fleeing the market. The real estate market, I'm seeing home value prices from the summertime to now dropping by a scary rate. I have been seeing $600,000 houses now valued at $480,000. I've been seeing $400,000 houses being valued at $300,000, and it's dropping at a very rapid pace. We've been focused on this, and I do think that there's a lot more pain in the real estate market. I think that there's a lot more pain left. Now, a lot of people have been asking me, well, what about crypto? What about crypto? What about crypto? I actually liked a tweet earlier from Rob, actually. You guys might not know who Rob is, but it's okay. But he also had a very, very interesting a thing talking about a bear market low. So he said, we've been crashing for 362 days. In 2018, we bottomed in 364 days. In 2015, and 410 days. If 2018 repeats, bottom is in. If 2018 repeats, what followed was a 60% crash. Ready for both scenarios, but I'm secretly hoping for another crash. And yeah, me too, honestly. I have fiat on the sidelines. I'm waiting. I'm waiting patiently. Anything is possible in this market. Now, the crazy thing is that a lot of people say there's never been this scenario with the world macroeconomics before. This is why history isn't going to go off anymore. And or isn't anything to go off of anymore. Sorry. We do see exactly what I predicted people would say after a 75 to 99% crashes. Imagine the narrative if all four buy targets hit. Same thing, different cycle, never changes. And yeah, we're looking at things because a lot of people are acting like, okay, well, no, like we're going off. We're going into this wave 5 where everything's going to go, massively crazy. That could happen. That could happen. But I do think that there's still more pain left in store for us. Why do I say that? Well, look at everything happening around the world. In fact, the Bank of England has just recently announced that they confirmed the UK is now in a recession and stated that it will last longer than the Great Recession of 2008. Is the US next? Check all the data on the GDP, inflation, and more at unusualwhales.com. And yeah, I think that we already are, just no one wants to admit it. I completely agree with this, statement down here. I think we have been for the longest time, and nobody wants to admit it. The media is scared to admit it. We do see over here as well, they know it's coming. There's a reason all the Fed voting members sold at the top. Shout out to Wall Street Silv. Fed warns of low market liquidity and $24 trillion treasury market in the latest financial stability report. Again, they're not telling us the real scenario here. Translation: no one wants to buy government bonds and treasuries. Things are breaking right now in the system. We do see over here as well, is the Fed pivot going to start next? Boom. A lot of people have been focused on the Fed pivot, and I do think that the Fed pivot definitely does provide an insight on what could happen next, but I don't think people realize what the Fed pivot actually means. And again, it really kind of it plays into what we have been looking at, right? Everyone thinks that the Fed pivot is going to mean that crypto goes immediately up. Going back to what Rob Art said on Twitter about this, crash that could happen, where it's an additional 60% crash, the Fed pivot could be that. And you might be questioning, what do I mean by that, right? Because the Fed pivot would create the next boom in crypto. But what do I mean by a 60% crash? Well, look at the last time the Fed pivoted, 2018. What happened after 2008? That's right, a 60% crash. Why could this happen? Well, let's look at this. We do see S&P 500 from the top to the bottom, 650 days back in 1974, 2001, 900 days, 2008, 500 days, 2022, currently less than 300 days. Shout out to Kevin Svensson over on Twitter. All of this recent Fed pivot talk is just hopium. It's not. We're going to get there in a second. If the stock market bottomed now, it would be the shortest recession ever. Well, this is what we mean by this, right? If we actually have this Fed pivot, it's not hopium. The Fed pivot would cause us to have a crash in the markets, including the S&P 500. We do see over here from Thomas Thornton. For those hoping for a Fed pivot, this is what happens after the pivot. Be careful for what you wish for. We do see the majority of the decline in these bear markets occurred after the Fed's pivot. And it goes all the way back to the 70s, by the way. Fed pivot, 36%. Fed pivot, 48%. Fed pivot, 27%. Fed pivot, 51%. Fed pivot, 58%. Fed pivot, 35%. And this was the last one. This is 2018. If we have that again, it could cause a significant drop in these markets, including a 60% drop in crypto. This is why I say the Fed pivoting might be an inevitable situation, but we could see this full-on pivot break down the entire market. Very similar to what Rob R is talking about over here, where if we do repeat 2018 and we have our full bottom in, we could still see a 60% crash happen. This is 100% likely. Or I shouldn't say likely, but 100% possible. And this is also why I've been, following everything happening on the macro, because everyone is very, focused on the macro, and I think that it's for good measure. I think that we should be focused on the macro. I think that first off, we should also be focused on what happened back in, quarter two, where we did see the GDP report, because this confirmed that the U.S. was in a recession. And just recently, with the UK announcing that they are finally in a recession, which is great for them to actually finally do this, because they should have announced it a while back. I do believe that the U.S. will eventually do that as well. And if they are forced to pivot at some point in time, that's great. But how long could this take for them to do so? And by the way, the S&P has been getting absolutely wrecked recently. We do see over here this should get regulated, extremely dangerous for retail investors. Obviously, it's a joke from 0x got. But we do see all of the major stocks out there, or I should say most of the major stocks out there, like Shopify, DoorDash, Peloton, Affirm, etc. Like these are down massively, 70 to 90%. Even Zillow, Zoom, Spotify, Lyft, Cloudflare, Block. These are some of the largest names in the game, down absolutely massively. And then over here, we actually have a very interesting video from Natalie Brunell, featuring Jim Bianco, and we do see we are in a more persistent inflation world. And this is from Jim. He thinks that the Fed is nowhere near a pivot and willing to break things to beat inflation. Our talk on the economy, Fed rate hikes, this bear market, Bitcoin, and crypto decentralization. Listen closely to this; is about 56 seconds long. Also, definitely go check out Natalie over on Twitter as well as on YouTube. This is from her YouTube interview.
I don't think that's happening. I think we are in a more persistent inflation world where, yes, I believe we've peaked, or we are peaking in terms of core inflation. And yes, I believe that over the next several months, inflation will probably go lower. But no, I don't think we're going to come anywhere near 2%. We're going to stay materially higher than that. And if we do, then the era of 4% interest rates might only be neutral. It might not be a restrictive rate, and that restrictive interest rates are still to come at much higher levels. And if that breaks things, it breaks things. If it breaks things bad enough that it creates a full-blown financial crisis, then the Fed will say, well, a full-blown financial crisis will also kill inflation. We could respond to that. So if you're waiting for your plaid Tesla and you're waiting for Jay to make sure that you get into it, keep waiting, because he's not. I don't think that's happening.
And this is also what I've been trying to tell people, is that, the Federal Reserve, they don't care about breaking things. They're just trying to fight inflation. Hence why they have been trying to make excuses for inflation for so long. They've been saying, inflation, it's transitory, it's this, it's that, it's, whatever. I've been saying this entire time that they will continue to tout this nonsense until, of course, they can combat it. And I do think that I don't think that they are close to a full-on pivot. A lot of people have been focused on the DXY, the dollar. I've been 100% focused on the dollar. I think that everyone should be focused on the dollar, especially if you are in crypto. Do I think that crypto could take off before the Fed pivots? 100%. But we need to pay attention to what the Fed does next, because this could have looming effects on the market. It could change the entire landscape of the market. People that think that the Fed pivot is just hopium because they are expecting a lot more pain, I don't think that they are realizing that with a Fed pivot, yes, it does break things. And yes, it will cause pain in the markets until we do see that, full-on recovery like we have seen every single time. I mean, it has recovered in the past, and it has recovered multiple times. It has been the pattern for so long. So we definitely need to pay attention to things happening right now. I think everything happening, the media will kind of, turn things into what they want you to see. We need to stay away from the media. The media will lie to you during the entire time. I've even shared my thoughts on this during March of 2020, where it was a generational bottom for crypto, right? We talked about how when we looked at, crypto at that time, what we really kind of focused on was the fact that every single time that we kind of looked at, all right, this was a generational bottom, everyone should have been buying, what was the media telling you to? Do not buy. Do not buy. Don't buy. You never want to listen to the media. The media will tell you the wrong things at the worst times. The worst times. They will try to stop you out from becoming rich, from becoming financially free. But we are definitely focused on the Fed pivot. We're focused on the US dollar. We're ignoring the media, and we are going in this with all of our weapons armed and locked in. We need to make sure that we are paying attention to the GDP reports, that we're paying attention to the economics that are being released from the Fed. And yes, I do believe that some of these could be, sort of manipulated, but we still need to pay attention to them because all of this data combined could help us come to a realization what's going to happen next. And in my opinion, I focused on this as well. I do believe that we will see a financial collapse to usher in the new financial system, and I do think that crypto will play a pivotal role within that system, but we have to wait and see what happens next. And I know that everyone wants crypto to completely balloon and go absolutely parabolic, but I do think that we need to endure just a little bit more pain. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, to notifications on if you guys want more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. This is up to you all. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night. If you guys are on this beautiful world, this has been Nick. Peace out, guys.